same. I know Stephen A. is so excited just because the Cowboys lost, so it was a good Thanksgiving for him just for that.
Yeah, he's a hater.
You know absolutely
well. You got it. Look at that face. Tim, another thing that Stephen A. loves, is Alabama. So tell me this. Who's the biggest threat to Alabama at this point?
I think it's Clemson. Everyone wants to knock Clemson. Oh, you go on the road and you lose in overtime against a really good Notre Dame team with the backup quarterback. No, we need to understand this Clemson team is still really, really good. If they play on a neutral field, that game right now is probably a toss-up. That's how good Clemson is when they're healthy, when they're ready to go. I think Alabama should be one, but I think people should also understand that when you're missing one of the top prospects in the last 10 years at the quarterback position, it makes a difference. I'm not trying to knock DJ, but what I'm saying is Trevor in his third year when they've been to back-to-back championships, it's a different team when Trevor Lawrence is on the field. We still need to put respect around Trevor and Clemson because they earned it and they deserve it.
What about Ohio State? And I asked that question essentially in two parts. I think that they could potentially be a more lethal team than Clemson, number one. And I think, number two, a legitimate argument could be made that Justin Fields is better than Trevor Lawrence. Talk to me about Ohio State for a second.
Yeah, I think both of those arguments are real arguments. I think Ohio State is a very talented team. I think the one difference between this Ohio State team and the Ohio States of last year and in the past where they were great, I don't see their defensive line dominating games. I don't see their defensive line getting to the quarterback like they have in the past, especially with Chase Young. Where is that dude that's going to step out? In the past, they've had the Bosa brothers. They've had Chase Young. They've had dominating defensive line. I don't believe they have that this year. They're still really good, but offense, Justin Fields, he is maybe the best overall player in college football because of his ability to run and throw, and they got so many weapons out wide. But my question mark is, you just gave up too many yards over and over and over again for me to question and say, what's missing here? Why aren't you getting to the quarterback, right? I know Indiana's got a talented offense, but there's just a little bit of question mark. I still think they're a top 4 team. They could win the championship. They can get it figured out. But I just have a few more question marks on Ohio State right now, especially defensively, to say I think they're better than Alabama or Clemson.
What gives with the lack of respect for Clemson? Because I'm with you, Tim. This team, I'll believe that they're not the best when I see Alabama beat them in the national championship game, because the last time they linked up, it wasn't close, right? They barely lose to Notre Dame in overtime on the road without Trevor Lawrence. I have little doubt they win that by multiple scores if Trevor Lawrence is there. They never lose at home. They haven't lost at home until Pittsburgh, right? Since Pittsburgh, and they're going to avenge that coming right up. Why is it that Alabama got the benefit of the doubt for so many years? And it seems to me Clemson is now where Alabama was, but they don't get the benefit of the doubt.
Well, I still think there's a lot of respect for Clemson. I think that's why they're ranked third. I think people still believe they're good, but this is the other interesting thing about the College Football Playoff Committee. If you really believe they're the top 4 teams, and with Trevor Lawrence, they would have beaten Notre Dame in a neutral site, then if you really believe that, and we're supposed to pick the 4 best teams, do you put them second? Or do you do more deserving? Because I also believe head-to-head's got to matter, and then Notre Dame rises up. But I still believe there's a lot of respect for Clemson. But I'm intrigued to see what happens when Clemson hits their stride, because they haven't hit it yet. But when they do, Clemson is going to be so dangerous. You have 2 of the top players, and Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. And by the way, the rest of the positions are stacked with 5-star talent. So when they hit their stride, they're going to be ready to play with anybody.
I know that Trevor Lawrence didn't play against Notre Dame, and that to me is the reason, and to most of us with sense, that's the reason Clemson lost this game to Notre Dame. And I do understand that it went into extra sessions, and I get all of that. But Tim Tebow, Trevor Lawrence not playing, how does that explain the defense giving up 47 points? I'm talking about Clemson.
Well, you also got to understand part of, a few of the scores is overtime, right? And this is college football today, 2020, not college football 2005. It's a different game. The best defenses are still giving up a lot of points. Probably the best defense in college football is Georgia. And Georgia got mopped by Florida, giving up a bunch of points. Right now, football is set up with targeting, with the way they're calling fouls, with the no huddle, with the schemes. It's set up for more points. So we also have to adjust our mind to say, you know what? We're not going to look at everything as a 17-14 game. It's different. Look at the championships we've been seeing the last few years when Clemson has matched up with Alabama. Those were good defenses, but there was a lot of points being scored, and so I still think we got to understand what defense looks like in 2020 and balance that with kind of what we have in our mind from the past. Teams are going to give up a little bit more.
I believe
football is evolving, and it's more of an offensive game.
I believe Clemson leads the league it leads college football in sacks and tackles for losses, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. We'll leave it there. Timothy,
And
always good to see you, Tim. Appreciate you. Yep. Go ahead.
Appreciate you guys. You're awesome. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Always great being with you guys. Grateful for y'all.
Happy
You too.
Thanksgiving
Enjoy some
holidays.
leftovers and some
Happy
college
holidays.
football. We will talk to you next week.
Thanksgiving holiday.
Stephen A., you're such a sweetheart. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little boxing. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., Saturday. Stephen.
A fake punt. Snap it back to Thompson, and he runs a reverse. Coming right, Cedric Wilson, and he's going to lose yardage.
That was crazy.
Instead of punting the ball away, now from their own 24.
That was crazy.
And they didn't have 5 yards to go.
No.
They had 10 yards to go.
It was a solid play call. It's a good play design. Their gunner made a good play, came off of it. He put us in a high-low read. That's the nature of those plays. You can never convert them, obviously, if you don't call them and if you don't believe in them. So I clearly understood the situation when it was called.
Washington hands off to Antonio Gibson, who streaks down the sideline. Touchdown! An inside handoff. Gibson has the space at the 30, 25, into the free. 10-5. Touchdown!
Hey.
Touchdown, Washington! Yeah.
All right, Stephen A. So here's the facts. The Cowboys get blown out on Thanksgiving Day, 41-16, by Washington. Of all teams, they now fall to 3-8. What is Jerry Jones to do about Mike McCarthy and his coaching?
Well, Jerry Jones needs to replace him. It doesn't have to be this second, even though that wouldn't bother me either. It's hard for me to say this because I take no enjoyment out of it, and